You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to be gifted. You just need to be the person who refuses to put down the hammer. Your breakthrough is not a matter of if, it is only a matter of when. The village of Alto sat at the base of the gray peak. It was a place of shadows and dust, where the sun only touched the rooftops for a few hours a day. The people of Alto were stone carvers. It was all they knew. Jonas was 25, and he was tired. He sat in his small, dusty workshop, staring at a block of marble that he had ruined. He had been trying to carve a simple hand, open, inviting, lifelike. Instead, he had chipped the thumb so badly the hand looked clawed and aggressive. He dropped his chisel. It clattered against the stone floor, the sound echoing like a mockery. "I'm done," Jonas said to the empty room. "I'm just not one of the greats." The greats were the legendary carvers who lived in the high temple, halfway up the gray peak. They were the ones whose statues were sold to kings and emperors. They were said to possess the golden touch. Jonas believed he was born with hands of lead. He stood up, wiped the dust from his apron, and walked out the door. He wasn't going home. He was going to the high temple to return his tools and find a job feeding goats. The ascent, the climb to the high temple was grueling. It was a path known as the Walk of Whispers, because the wind howled through the canyons, sounding like voices telling you to turn back. Jonas climbed for 2 hours. His legs burned, his lungs ached. With every step, his mind replayed his failures, the cracked noses of his busts, the uneven pillars, the clawed hand. "Why try?" he thought. "Some people are born to fly. I was born to fall." When he finally reached the massive oak doors of the high temple, he was gasping for air. He didn't knock. He pushed the doors open and walked into the central courtyard. He expected to see magic. He expected to see men and women dancing around marble blocks, striking them once to reveal perfect statues underneath. He expected to see the golden touch. Instead, he saw an old man sweeping dust. The courtyard was filled with rubble. There were piles of broken stone everywhere. The old man, who had wild white hair and strong, ropey arms, stopped sweeping and looked at Jonas. "Delivery day isn't until Tuesday," the old man grunted. "I'm not delivering," Jonas said, throwing his bag of tools onto the ground. "I'm quitting. I want to leave these here. I don't want to look at them ever again." The old man leaned on his broom. "Quitting? Why?" "Because I have no talent," Jonas spat. "I work for weeks on a piece, and then one slip of the chisel ruins it. I'm 25. If I were going to be great, I'd be great by now." The old man looked at the bag of tools, then back at Jonas. "I am Elian, the master carver of this temple." Jonas froze. Elian was a legend. He was the man who had carved the weeping angel in the Capitol Square, a statue so realistic that birds tried to land on its shoulders. "You," Jonas stammered, "but you're sweeping." "Stone makes dust, boy. Someone has to sweep it." Elian gestured to a massive pile of jagged rocks in the corner. "Do you know what that is?" "Rubble," Jonas said. "That," Elian said, "is my last 6 months of work." The lesson of the pile. Jonas walked over to the pile. He looked closer. He saw a nose that was too long. He saw an ear that was too low. He saw a hand that, strangely, looked a lot like the clawed hand Jonas had made that morning. You made mistakes?" Jonas asked. "Mistakes?" Elian laughed, a dry, rasping sound. "Boy, I make catastrophic failures. I have destroyed more marble than you will ever touch." Elian walked over and picked up a piece of broken stone. "You think the greats have a magic touch," Elian said. "You think we see the statue in the stone and just release it. That is a lie poets tell to sell books. Carving is a fight. The stone does not want to be a statue. The stone wants to be a stone. You have to convince it otherwise." "But it's so easy for you," Jonas argued. "I've seen your work. It's flawless. Come with me." Elian led Jonas through the courtyard to a back room. It was dark, lit only by a single window. In the center of the room stood a statue covered in a sheet. Elion pulled the sheet away. It was a statue of a soldier, kneeling, tired, holding a broken sword. It was magnificent. The exhaustion in the soldier's face was so profound it made Jonas's heart ache. "Beautiful," Jonas whispered. "Look closer at the left arm," Elion commanded. Jonas leaned in. There, running along the forearm, was a thin, hairline crack. It was barely visible, but it was there. "I was polishing this 3 days ago," Elion said softly, "and I pressed too hard. Snap. 6 months of work. Ruined." "So you threw it away?" "No," Elion said. "I changed the angle of the shield. I moved the sword. I hid the crack in the shadow of the armor. The statue is actually better now. The soldier looks more desperate. The mistake gave the art its soul." Elion turned to Jonas, his eyes piercing. "The difference between you and me, Jonas, is not talent. I don't have more talent than you. I just have a higher tolerance for failure. When you break a piece, you say, 'I am a failure.' When I break a piece, I say, 'Now I know how not to carve that muscle.'" The 10,000th blow. Elion walked back to the courtyard and picked up Jonas's bag of tools. He held them out. "There is a rule in this temple," Elion said. "It is called the rule of the 10,000th blow." "What does that mean?" "It means that the rock doesn't break on the last hit," Elion explained. "When you strike a massive boulder with a sledgehammer, nothing happens. You hit it 10 times, nothing. 100 times, nothing. 1,000 times, still nothing. But on the 1,001st hit, the rock splits in two." Elion stepped closer. "You, Jonas, are standing at hit number 999. You have spent years striking the rock. You are tired. Your hands are bleeding. You see no crack. You see no progress. And so you think the work has been wasted. You think the rock is winning." Elion dropped the tools back into Jonas's hands. They felt heavy. "But the rock is weakening on the inside," Elion whispered. "The structure is compromising. You cannot see it, but the change is happening. If you walk away now, you leave right before the breakthrough. You leave the glory for the next man who comes along and hits the rock just one more time." Jonas looked down at his chisels. They were dull and scratched. They looked like the tools of a struggle. "I'm tired, Elion," Jonas admitted, his voice trembling. "I'm just so tired of being mediocre." "Good," Elion smiled. "Fatigue is the price of admission. Mediocrity is the mud you have to walk through to get to the clear water. No one skips the mud." The return. Jonas didn't say anything for a long time. He looked at the pile of Elion's broken stones. He looked at the perfect statue with the hidden crack. He realized that he had been worshiping a false god. He had been worshiping ease. He thought that if it was meant to be, it would come easily. But Elion had shown him that greatness was actually a product of resilience. Jonas tightened his grip on his bag. "One more hit?" Jonas asked. "One more hit," Elion nodded, "and then another, and then another, until the stone surrenders." Jonas turned and walked back out the heavy oak doors. The walk down the Walk of Whispers was different this time. The wind still howled, but Jonas didn't hear voices telling him to turn back. He heard the sound of a hammer striking stone. Clink, clink. He returned to his dusty workshop in the valley. He walked over to the clawed, ugly hand he had carved. He didn't smash it. He didn't throw it away. He set it on the shelf, right at eye level. He picked up a fresh block of marble. He picked up his chisel. He didn't know if this next piece would be a masterpiece. In fact, it probably wouldn't be. It might be another failure. But that didn't matter anymore. He wasn't carving to be finished. He was carving to find out who he would be after the 10,000th blow. Jonas raised his hammer. He struck the stone. The takeaway: we often look at successful people and see only the statue, the finished product, the glory, the money, the applause. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to be gifted. You just need to be the person who refuses to put down the hammer. Your breakthrough is not a matter of if, it is only a matter of when.